Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, Changes to the New South Wales Stage 6 Mathematics Standard Syllabus with Stuart Palmer. My name is Caroline Paul and I am the New South Wales Sales Manager here in Sydney. Before we get started, in the spirit of reconciliation, Cambridge University Press and Assessment acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. Our well-known presenter today, Stuart Palmer, will be discussing the changes coming for the New South Wales Stage 6 Standard Syllabus. Stuart Palmer has more than 25 years' experience teaching students mathematics. He is very well known by teachers throughout the state for the professional learning workshops that he delivers. Stuart also assists thousands of Year 12 students every year as they prepare for their HSC examinations. Straight after Stuart's presentation, we will be joined by two other authors on the team, Christina Barbara and Darren Thomas, as well as Ben Staker, our maths publisher, for a Q&A session. Following that, we will be showing some further information on the new editions of Cambridge Maths for the Stage 6 resources, and details also of our next webinar. So with that, I am going to hand over to Stuart now to get started. Thanks, Stuart.
Thank you, Caroline, and I would like to acknowledge the fantastic work that the team at Cambridge does throughout New South Wales. And on this occasion, my two new members of the author team, Christina and Darren, who, unlike me, actually work in a school full-time, 5 days a week, 40 weeks a year, in two different schools in very different parts of Sydney, and they bring a wealth of experience to this new project. As mentioned, I've been travelling around New South Wales as I do, and I've already spoken to teachers in all those places in the left-hand column. That's approximately 300 teachers, I think, already from about 200 schools. I really enjoy hearing their stories, and there's more to come. So if you're anywhere near any of those places in the right-hand column, have a look at the PD for Maths website and maybe send me an email to inquire. Yes, the reaction so far, which I get a sense of being in a room with teachers when they're free to speak freely, well, there's a certain amount of frustration about a new syllabus again. Well, let's hope this one is for a longer period of time. But I've got to say up front, NESA, on this occasion, NESA has done a much better job of delivering all the things that we need, not just the syllabus itself, but all the other support documentation, some of which I'll mention this afternoon. So I think the three of us on this occasion have a somewhat more straightforward task ahead of us than Greg Powers did back in 2017 when the syllabus came out, and it was very, very thin, shockingly thin, and we were promised all sorts of support documents and the topic guidance documents, and well, they weren't really there when Greg was doing the work. So I think we've got the good end of this deal. Right. Most important changes. Let's start at the end. The HSC examinations. Not a lot of change there. NESA has published some very well-formed sample exams for both Standard 1 and Standard 2. And there are many of the questions in those are recycled questions from previous years, but the things that are new and different in the syllabus have been quite well represented in those questions. They are definitely worth a look. School-based assessment. Some people are very excited to hear this one, that the investigative style assignment is no longer compulsory. Some people tell me that they will continue to do it with Year 11 standard for lots of different reasons, even though it's not compulsory, but other people talk about the burden of setting and marking those tasks, and especially the risk that the work they are marking is really not students' own work, which is only getting more and more difficult to detect with the rise of AI. If you haven't been to the syllabus website, yet, there is no obvious download. You get to choose your own adventure with the download. And I went a bit crazy at first and ticked way too many boxes and ended up with a very unwieldy document. But if you tick those boxes, you get a lovely download of about 57 pages. Highly recommend it. If you, like me, prefer to have something to flick through and make notes on as you come to grips with the new syllabus. We're not a subject anymore. Get used to, there's a lot of changes of language. We're not a subject. We are a learning area. Why use one word when you can use two, I say. Yes. And poor old working mathematically has copped a bit of a hit, although there is a working mathematically outcome. It's the same outcome we now use from kindergarten to year 10. And this particular little diagram might be handy when you're putting things out there for students and parents. I found that on the website. Um, anyhow, uh, algebra is no longer a topic, and linear relationships is no longer a subtopic. Yes. Algebra is an area of study, and the things on the right-hand column, as you can see, are focus areas. I am going to really struggle to change that piece of vocabulary after 40 years of doing this. But anyway, there you go. Um, Big change. There was in the outgoing Year 11 syllabus, there were some dot points that carried the diamond rhombus symbol. That carried a special meaning that if things that carried the diamond, everybody had to do those in year 11, but things which did not have the diamond, you could skip them if you were certain that some of your students, all of any of your students were definitely going to do year 12 standard 1. Yeah, so that idea has gone, which means that every dot point in year 11 is now compulsory for everybody. Unfortunately, that broadens the scope of the HSC exam for Standard 1 because I believe that only the diamond dot points were assessed in the HSC for Standard 1 from Year 11, but now it looks like everything from Year 11 is fair game for the optional HSC exam for Standard 1. And the other thing that's gone are the paper clips. I'm very relieved about this. Uh, you might recall the current syllabus had paper clips which indicated dot points which were common to both Standard 2 and Advanced. And those dot points were fair game for common HSC questions which appeared in both Standard 2 and Advanced. This idea is now defunct from 2027 onwards. We haven't been given a reason why. I guess you could say it's just chirping crickets. Maths teachers will know that if they were in the room back in 2020. Anyway, let's not go there. Mathematically, there has been a bit of moving of deck chairs on the Titanic. The first part of networks has moved from year 12 to year 11. That means that year 12 standard 1 has no networks in it. It's all over in year 11. But year 12 standard 2, that's where they do network flow and critical path analysis. Um, To make up for that, they have moved probability from year 11 to year 12, and the introduction to interest and depreciation has gone from year 11 to year 12 also. Judging by the number of pages we had to move from the old edition to the new edition, it looks like Year 11 standard is now smaller than it was, and Year 12 standard 2 is going to be bigger. And to make that worse, we now have to do linear simultaneous equations algebraically. That's going to hurt some of our students. Maybe they should have a crack at that in year 10 before the end of year 10. Otherwise, seeing that, possibly as one of the last things in year 12 might be a bit late. Good news, similar triangles has gone, completely vanished. Not so good news, Venn diagrams, new. I don't think we've ever had Venn diagrams in a subject um, in a learning area. I don't think we've had Venn diagrams in a learning area in this learning area be previously for students of this caliber. My observation is we don't need to do the fancy notation with the brackets and the U and the upside down U and the A with the hat and all of that. I'm going to check that out, but I don't think we need to go to that degree of trouble. Anyway, let's come to the books now. Main reason you are here, you are probably familiar with Greg Powers' books that have been around for a while now. Well, the three of us um, were given free rein to change Greg's books in any way, shape, or form that we like. So we are doing lots of different things, but one of the main things we are doing is that we are including features that you are probably familiar with from our Year 7 to 10 books. I'll show you some of those. At the beginning of every section, right underneath the heading, we have a box that includes learning intentions and a little bit of advice about what happens now and in the past and in the future. There's lots of reminders in the Year 11 book that you will never see this thing again until you do the trial and the Year 11 exam and the HSC exam, that many things in Year 11 are not repeated in Year 12. All of our examples will have a video, just like 7 to 10, and those videos are very well constructed with an Australian teacher, a voice, and a pen. And yes, the best part, I think, for some students is a pause button and a go back 15 seconds button. And whoa, I need to go back to the start and start that again button, something they can't easily do in class. The examples are going to be set up exactly the same way as the 7 to 10 books. So the solution on the left, very much what we would be hoping to see in an exam, and explanation on the right. You may, if you have a copy of the previous edition, it was kind of the other way around, but we are going through a lot of trouble to switch that to make it, to bring it into line with the 7 to 10 books. Also, we are following up every single example with a now you try. And as you can see, they are pretty much identical to the example, but they give students a chance to put that learning into action immediately with a slightly different question, and answers for the now you tries will appear in the answer section at the back of the book. The new syllabus has many, many references to spreadsheets. Uh, so we are trying to be a bit creative and get spreadsheet activities throughout the book where possible. And some of those files are already created and can be accessed through the online platform. The X within the body of an exercise, we're changing from level one, level two, level three. We had a lot of talk about the words to use. Building, developing, and challenging has replaced level one, level two, and level three. But big change. We are acutely aware that in the HSC exam, there are sometimes, well, every year there's at least a few where students have to not just turn the handle, do a calculation, but also communicate clearly, communicate their reasoning, communicate their understanding and their fluency. We are busily writing one of those questions to go at the end of every single exercise. Yes, students might not like them, but it is the nature of the beast. Then in the HSC exam, you have to use your words occasionally in order to get full marks. And certainly in a question that's worth 4 or even 5 marks, the answer alone, even if it's correct, would only get you one of those marks. So we're building these throughout. Here's an example that has multiple parts. Some of them are like this with multiple parts. Some of them are not. Some of them are just boom, looks like a 4 mark question, like we've seen in the last 5, 6 years in particular, when Nessa said there will be at least two questions worth 4 or 5 marks in the HSC exam. This is one of my favorites. The working is missing. The answer is correct, but the working is missing. So, yes, we are demanding that students fill in all the steps. And then we want students to play around and change just one number in the original question so that the answer will be x equals 5, not x equals 1.6. I think that will challenge some of our students. This one, I had a bit of fun with this one, Josh, with his mathematical trick, and hopefully get students to explain. That's the word they really don't like in the HSC exam, isn't it? They don't like the E word. Explain why the answer will always be 5, no matter what number his friends choose. Yes, as I said, we're working really hard to put something like that at the end of every single exercise. Here's one about blood alcohol content, and we're asking them, is it safe? Is it safe for one person to drive but not the other? So we're asking them to do two calculations and make a decision. Right, at the end of every chapter, we've got key ideas and a bit of a chapter summary. Um, and then the thing that people love about the new edition of 7 to 10, the chapter checklist with success criteria. This has been a very popular inclusion in the 7 to 10 books, and I'm sure it's going to be a popular one for this series as well. And like the 7 to 10, we have a series of multiple choice questions and some short answer questions and some extended response question. And at all times, they are related back to the most relevant exercise. So a student can go back if they can't do the question. You will notice that the thing that is new in year 11, the networks, paths, and trees, when you see that chapter, you will notice that it has been substantially reworked. This was a big ask back in 2017 for the textbook authors trying to write a chapter about networks with so little information. Um, we've decided to put this as the last chapter in the Year 11 book. I actually think myself, this should be the last topic you do, partially because I think it would be nice to do this one last at the end of year 11 and then just keep on rolling straight into the network flow and the critical path analysis with your standard two students. I can't think of a good reason for separating them, but that's up to you. And the other thing, if you think about it for a moment, imagine, put yourself in the shoes of a student. There's lots of shoes out there for these students, the ones who were doing advanced and then changed to standard. There are two things that they, in an ideal world, they wouldn't want to miss. The first one of those is the latitude, longitude, and time differences. And the second one of those is on your screen now. Networks, paths, and trees. Sorry, my nose is itchy. Always happens when I do this. Networks, paths, and trees. So, for the sake of the students who change and for the sake of the standard teachers who teach those students who change, I actually think it would be a good idea to leave those two topics until the end of year 11 as your last two topics. In NESA's sample scope and sequence, they have not done this. I think they've put both of those topics in term two. But as you know, a lot of those advanced students don't come to your standard classroom until the end of term two or sometime during term three. So for that reason, yes. As I said, NESA has published a scope and sequence, and I've got a different version of that, um, which I'll be sharing. I'm going to make scope and sequence documents and program teaching program documents available to users of Cambridge. Um, I'm already sharing that information through those face-to-face workshops that I'm doing. So if you can get along to one of those, it would be really worthwhile to spend a whole day together instead of 23 minutes. Anyway, I think that's all I want to say for the time being. Let's hand back to the team and you have the capacity to ask some questions.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, everyone, for attending this afternoon. For the rest of this session, we'll be doing Q&A. So if you have any questions at all, just put them in chat and we'll try to get through as many as possible. Okay. So, Stuart, just grouping a few questions together about changes to assessment. So why is the investigative style assignment no longer compulsory? Can we only have 3 assessment tasks in year 11? And can we introduce the half-yearly examination block back?
Right. Okay. So that was a triple whammy. The first one was the investigative style assignment. I think a lot of schools were having trouble with the all my own work aspect of the investigative style assignment, and also as I said, the rise of artificial intelligence and chat GPT. I think that's part of it. But I think Nessa heard from a lot of teachers who didn't like that kind of assessment. But having said that, especially when I travel west across the Blue Mountains to small regional centres, they, on the whole, are, well, not on the whole, but a decent percentage of those are determined that they will continue to do the investigative style assignment, even though it's not compulsory. On the other hand, when I meet people in Sydney, they seem very excited to drop it. The half yearly exam, I don't think the half yearly exam will be back because it states loud and clear that we are only allowed it in year 11, there are 3 assessment tasks. In year 12, there are 4. but we are only allowed to have one of those, which is a formal written exam, which covers a lot of topics, possibly every topic up to date. So I think it's still the case that if you had a half yearly exam in year 11 and a yearly exam at the end of term 3 of year 11, one of those would have to be worth 0%. I think I answered all three questions, Ben.
Yep, certainly did. Thank you, Stuart. Okay, for the next question, maybe an open one for the author team, whoever would like to answer. So this comes from Arden Casey. Why have you decided to include Eulerian circuits and Hamiltonian walks if they are not explicitly part of the course? I find that having that exercise in the book can throw some students off. So I think this was in the table of contents marked as extending.
Yes.
What do
I
you
think
say
I
to
might
that?
throw to Christina on that one. Are you there, Christina?
Yes, I'm here. Yes.
Would you like to answer that question?
Yeah, we just left it in as an extending exercise. So you can skip that one, but if you have time, it's still some good information and it just gives, I guess, a better understanding of networks. But you're right, it's not in the syllabus, but it's there as extending. So you can skip it. Yeah, it's just extra information. I thought we'd leave it because I thought it was good information.
And I think
Yeah.
I think in the table of contents it says extending. Am I right, Ben?
Yes.
And at the top of that exercise it says extending.
Yeah.
I think it's, if you've got some bright students, and clearly we do have some very bright students who do standard, because standard 2 in particular, because some of them get very high marks in standard 2 and get a very high ATAR. So it does add a bit of extra weight to the topic and interest, I think, but it's up to you.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, this one's coming from Gabby Corduroy. What exactly constitutes a formal exam? Can we get a clear definition, please? Do you have anything to say to that, Stuart?
Yes, I do. I don't have it in the slideshow, but I do have a message from NESA, which they published back in 2017. So I don't want to risk going to find that now and wasting time, but perhaps we could follow up with that and we could send that definition out to everybody. But it basically says it's an exam like an HSC exam or a trial HSC exam where everybody goes to the hall. It's not open book. There's no cheat sheets. It covers basically a large number of topics, not just one or two topics. Yeah, that's the plain English version, as opposed to a test that you might do in your classroom, which goes for 40 minutes and it's worth 40 marks, and it only covers one topic. You might allow your students to refer to some pre-prepared notes during that test, or even make it completely open book, which I wouldn't do. By the way, on NESA's samples, I'll start again. On NESA's sample assessment schedule, task 1, first time I've ever seen NESA put this in black and white. Task 1 is exactly what I just said, a test in which students can refer to prepared notes during the test. So NESA is saying that's not a formal written exam, partly because it only covers one thing, and also partly because students can refer to notes they have made prior to the day. Do you want to have a follow-up question? The person who asked that question, whose name I've already forgotten, do you have a follow-up question to that, or are you happy with what I just said?
Thank you, Stuart. Well, we'll wait for Gabby, see if they put another question
Yep.
in the chat.
Thanks, Gabby. Sorry, go on.
That's all right. As a follow-up, while we're still on assessment, Joshua Sanchez asks, in your experience, Stuart, what are the best topics to assess in Year 12 for in-class, non-exam assessments?
In Year 12. Well, okay, for non-formal assessments, which we can still do, I have always said that the topic that rises above all the others is statistics. And for that reason, I think it's best to do all the statistics in one fell swoop as one very long topic. But at the start of the topic, the students get a project to work on, and they work on it while they are working their way through the topic, and then it's due about 2 weeks after the topic has finished. I actually have some samples of that I put together back in 2017, 2018. So yes, some people, on the other hand, think that financial maths is the way to go, because the students can actually investigate some real life scenario, like how am I going to cope when I get a job, have to move away from home, have to have a motor vehicle, have to buy groceries and pay bills. That's been quite a popular assessment for the last 5 or so years in various places, especially in regional areas where many students do actually move away from home the year following their HSC to do further study or do an apprenticeship or some other sort of training. Done.
Yep, thank you, Stuart. And then Gabby's gotten back and they've just asked, so is there a time limit on a class test? So a lot of assessment focused questions this time around.
Yeah. No, there was no time limit mentioned, but look, at my last school where I was working for 12 years and head of department, we became very proficient at these things in 40 minutes. We had 50-minute lessons, and we did 40-minute assessment tasks that were worth 30 marks. They were all the same sort of structure, and with a lot of discussion and practice, I think we became very proficient at doing those and allowing students to prove to us that they were better than a D, better than a C. In fact, they were a B or an A grade student. So I think that can be done in 40 minutes. Anything less is a bit of a rush, in my opinion, but I don't think, at my last school, when I started there, we had the half-yearly exam for year 11. I was actually greatly relieved when that block disappeared, because we were losing about 2.5 weeks of quality teaching time, plus we weren't allowed to teach anything new the week before that block. So there goes 3.5 weeks out of year 11, and likewise for year 12. So yeah, I wasn't sad about that, but some people were. Some people say the students don't get enough exam practice. Yes, next.
Thank you. I think following along those lines then about exam practice, we have a question from Scott that says, the Standard 2 exam has become more difficult over the years since Maths General became Maths Standard at the last syllabus change.
Yes.
Have you added more challenging HSC style questions to the new book?
Yes. Christina?
Yes, definitely, 100%. Yes. We added more at the beginning, but like some drilling, but definitely HSC style. Also try and mix it like with measurement, add, converting capacity area, like just throw it all in together. So the questions are bigger and harder as well, and definitely HSC style, even some trial for inspiration, but yeah, some definitely harder questions. Yes. Yeah.
Darren, would you like to add something there?
Hello, everyone. It's really important to put those detailed questions in, because like you said, the exam are getting harder. The standard 1 exam seems to be getting harder as well. And so it's really important that those questions are there. And we've tried really hard to put them there at the end of each chapter so that there's relevant questions to each section, so that students can do them then, but then look back on them later and come back to it and look back at that question and can I do it again now? So it's a really important part to be there.
At the other extreme, I think we've also tried to put a few easy lead in at the start of the exercise just to get people going as well. So that I would say on average, most exercises have a few extra questions than they had before. One part of the feedback on the first edition was that it just didn't go deep enough, far enough, and difficult enough. And we heard that loud and clear, and we're trying to address that in the actual print book as well as in the online materials.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Another question, still going along the same lines now, keeping it all together. So Ilja's asked, does the textbook/online resource have problem sets with mixed problems from various areas of learning?
One of Caroline's slides, in a moment, Caroline's going to talk about what's in the, in a moment, Caroline's going to talk about what's in the online space. And so we might just throw to that when we get to that, if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. So Susan Smith's asking, are there practice exams in the textbook or revision? So e.g. after 4 chapters, you have a test, or is it at the end?
Yes, there is a practice paper halfway through the Year 11 book, and there's a practice paper at the end of the Year 11 book, and it'll be the same in Year 12. But there's also additional practice tests which won't be in the book. They'll be in the online space, which Caroline will talk about soon. I'd also add that the chapter checklist and success criteria at the end of each chapter, which is new, is a good way for students to make sure that they have ticked all the boxes and can do stock standard questions. But we're also claiming that the things that question we're putting at the end of every exercise will challenge some of the best students in your class.
Awesome. Okay, another question. So this is about the content in Year 12. So you talked a bit about how all the dot points are compulsory in Year 11 for Standard 1 students.
Yep.
So can you maybe talk a little bit about the key differences between the Standard 1 and Standard 2 books?
Yes, well, we've been talking a lot about this. I kind of feel as though the Standard 1 book is predominantly for students who are going to do the HSC exam. Even though it's optional, we kind of feel as though maybe more students might do the HSC exam, perhaps, now that you are allowed to do, say, English studies and Standard 1 maths. You're allowed to do both of those now and still get an ATAR. So to my surprise, yesterday I discovered that a student last year or the year before did Standard 1, did the optional HSC exam and got an ATAR of 93. Anyway, I'm not sure that if I had a class full of people who had no intention of doing the exam, not sure that I'd be using the textbook all of the time. But we are aiming that the Standard 1 book, when you get to a piece of mathematical content that is in Standard 2 and Standard 1, Well, it's fair game for both cohorts. We're going to have to get the Standard 1 students up to the same level of expertise, but we might take longer to get there. So we might start that section at a lower level, some simpler examples, and in some cases, just like in year 9 and 10, something that's in the big thick book, which happens in just one exercise, might take 2 or even 3 exercises to unpack more carefully in the Standard 1 book. So yeah, it's going to be challenging to cater for Standard 1 in particular. Standard 2, I've got to say, working on a Standard 2 book is so much more cut and thrust than working on the year 9 and 10 books, because with the year 9 and 10 books you never know where to stop. But with an HSC course, we have the all-defining HSC exams. The three of us are very familiar with the questions we've been seeing over the last 5 or 6 years and prior to that. So there is a clear definition of when is it okay to stop, which is really enjoyable compared to working on 9 and 10. But yeah, so the books will be similar. We are mindful of the fact that in some schools, especially in small schools and small regional remote schools, that you might have Standard 1 and 2 students in the same classroom. Not ideal, but we are going to endeavour to make the the treatment of the same concept as similar as possible in the two books, but of course it needs to be more gentle in the introduction in the Standard 1 book. I hope that answers the question. Christina's doing this, so I think she likes that answer. Thank you, Christina. What is that person who asked that question? Would you like to follow up with a follow-up question? That'd be great.
Yeah.
What else you got there?
We'll wait for them to follow up.
Yeah.
Give them a bit of time to type. So another question. This comes from Wendy, and I'll group it together with another question as well. So, are we using Z-score tables for the normal distribution? And also, what do you think about Gantt charts? How are you going to be doing with a Gantt chart?
Okay, let's do the first one first. The first one is my reading of the syllabus is that we still have to use tables for annuities, but when it comes to the normal distribution, the two words probability table have vanished. So that to me, that says that we're still using the empirical rule where the Z-scores are whole numbers from -3 to +3, but we don't need to go deeper than that using a table to work out work with Z-scores of 2.3, say. That was one of the common content things, and given that there's no common content anymore, I guess they thought they could drop that. That's still in the advanced course, but it seems to have vanished from Standard 2. Yeah, that was the first question. What was the second part?
The second part was about Gantt charts. So
yes, well, I delegated that one. Christina, tell us about Gantt charts.
Gantt charts are not that bad. Actually, I quite like them. I think they're getting a bit of a bad rap maybe, but no, they're actually quite good. They're not as bad as you think. They're quite simplified. It's just a visual bar chart, another way to draw the network diagram. But yeah, I've spent a lot of time and a lot of pages on the Gantt charts, and it has its own exercise. So yeah, it's actually I think I've explained it quite well. So, but yeah, it's not as bad, it's not as hard, but it's just a visual, another way to draw, you know, from the table, with the predecessor table to a Gantt chart, and from the network diagram to it's not as bad. Yeah, it's just as the sample paper has an example, it's just like that. Yeah, nothing too much, too hard. Yeah.
I have encountered dozens and dozens and dozens of maths teachers who had a previous career in which they used Gantt charts, but not one of them says they ever drew one with a pen on paper. But unfortunately, it seems as though they want students to do that in the HSC exam. If you haven't seen the question in the HSC sample exam, it's worth having a look. The question is there, the solution is there, the marking criteria are there, but boy, it's a lot of tedious work for 3 marks. I'm kind of hoping, I'm hoping for better. I'm hoping maybe there'll be one that's partially drawn and the students just have to finish it, or perhaps one that has a mistake in it and they have to find the mistake and fix it. Or perhaps it'll be a good thing for multiple choice. But the question as written in the sample, yeah, I'm not a fan of that. But anyway, I note that we have never, at standard 2 level, students have never been required to draw a parabola from scratch. Never, not once, going all the way back to 2001. I suspect the same thing will happen with Gantt charts, but wait and see. Ben?
Thank you. I think going on with that as well, with the Gantt chart. So when should the networks topic in Year 12 be taught, do you think? In term 4 or at the end of term 2?
Yeah, well, like I said, if it were up to me, I think the Year 11 networks topic would be the last one in Year 11, and then the Year 12 networks would be the first one in Year 12 to keep it all together. Would you do that, Christina?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good idea. Yeah. I think we'll be doing that as well. Yeah. Keep the networks together.
I don't know why. I haven't asked anybody why they decided to split it between Year 11 and 12. Yeah, I think students deserve a chance to learn it early on and get their head around it before they do too many assessment tasks, well and truly before the trial, because it's a complicated piece of work. And by the way, in that section, there's 2 things. There's critical path analysis and there's also network flow. And after talking to Christina, our resident expert in networks, we decided to put the critical flow first. That's what the syllabus does now. I think it actually makes a lot of sense to do it in that order because some students really struggle with the critical path analysis, so you might as well get the easier thing out of the way first. So, yeah, by the way, there is a sample chapter available to everybody, and we chose the chapter on time and location, which Christina has done a beautiful job of. There's a lovely story about which country is it that missed a day?
Samoa. Samoa.
Western Samoa or American Samoa? I think it's
Western Samoa.
Western
Yep.
Samoa completely missed a day because the international dateline was moved from one side of their country to the other for some very good reasons. Anyway, yeah, right. Ben.
Thank you. That was a good answer. That's very interesting too about missing a day. So another one, this is coming from Rebecca. So what will be the approach to bivariate data? Will you include new instructions for the approved Casio calculators? So I think this is just a question of how we're going to approach technology in the books.
Yes. You may have noticed in the 7 to 10 book that we decided not to put instructions in the actual print book because, as we know, books come and go, calculators come and go, and it looks very old-fashioned if there are calculator instructions for a calculator that nobody uses anymore. So when calculator instructions are necessary, they will be accessible in digital form from the online place so that they are downloadable, changeable, editable, savable, shareable, rather than clunky instructions on the page, which we avoided throughout the Year 7 to 10 series. And yeah, some students do have the good old-fashioned 82 Casio, and other students have the 8200. Darren, you're onto this, aren't you?
We've got 4 different calculators there at the moment, and I'm just looking and talking to some people in the country areas and regional areas to see what calculators they're using, to see if I need to add any more to that. So they might all be there now, but they will certainly all be there by not too distant future.
So what are the 4? There's the 82 and the 100.
The 82 and the 100. There's a Casio series calculator, and I just can't remember exactly what Casio series calculator it is. And there's the new, there's a Sharp calculator and the new Casio calculator.
8200.
8200, that's it.
Yes, now people often ask me about, would you recommend the 8200 for standard students? I think it does a really good job of the stats, but I'm telling Year 12 standard students to take both the 82 and the 8200 to the HSC exam, so they have both calculators accessible.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so I think this is a follow-up continuation of the critical paths network question. So Zach has asked, could keeping networks and critical paths a little separated be beneficial to students? Oh, so students can relearn how to draw networks with labeled directed angle edges rather than labeled vertices. So,
look, well, we haven't done that before because it was all together in Standard 2 before. So I guess try it. The only way to find out is to try it. Keep them separate for a year, put them back together again for a year, but you just got to have the same teacher, the same conditions, a controlled experiment, same students, same teacher. Yeah, joking. Give it a crack and let us know.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, I think maybe we have time for 1 or 2 quick ones. So just from Wendy, has error in measurement, including percentage error, been removed?
It has.
Yeah. Awesome. And then Kate Moore's asked, so are area charts covered as well as Pareto charts in statistics? So are Pareto charts still in statistics?
No mention of area charts and no mention of Pareto charts.
Okay. Well, I think that just does us on time, Stuart, Christina and Darren. Thank you so much for taking the time to answer the questions. For everyone watching at home, any questions that we didn't get to, there's still quite a few. We'll follow up with you via email. Okay, passing back to you, Caroline. Thank you.
Excellent. Yes, thank you, Stuart, Christina, Darren, and Ben for today's presentation. I think we got through some really good questions there, and hopefully that was helpful for everyone. So before we wrap up, I'd just like to run through a couple of final slides just to show you exactly what is coming for these new courses. So here on the screen, you can see the covers of our 3 new Year 11 resources. Now, we had heaps of questions coming in during that Q&A session asking when they're due and etc. So I thought I'd just cover this now. So all 3 of our Year 11 books are due in October of this year. The New South Wales sales team currently do have samples, and we are at the moment visiting schools, going through the samples plus also the online platform. So we will reach out to you, but please feel free to reach out to us as well. On the next slide, it will show you the Year 12 covers. So we will have samples for these early next year, and these will be ready for Year 12 for that following year. So we will have our 2 standard books, 1 and 2, and then advanced, and then our 2 extension books as well. So we will come out and share samples with those when we have them. Now, as Stuart mentioned, we do have a lot online, so I'm just going to run through quickly what we have for everyone here. So for those who already use Cambridge, you're aware that we have the print books for students, plus the digital only, plus we have the online teaching suites. So these are actually a complementary resource for teachers who adopt the student resources into the school. So we essentially set you up with access to these, and on these platforms you have a bank of different resources that you can use. So with these new books, we will actually have a new exam generator coming for Year 12. So this is where you can really just build your own practice exam. So with Nessa style exam questions, and you can hand pick what you'd like and then print that out as a written practice exam. We will have extra skill sheets and worksheets. We will have, someone did ask this in the Q&A, where we have PowerPoints. Yes, we will have PowerPoints for you to use in the classroom or to share with students, and they are editable. For advanced extension, we'll have extra foundation level worksheets, and we'll also have challenge questions as well for standard. We'll have chapter review activities. Just like with our 7 to 10, we will have videos for every worked example across every course. So as Stuart mentioned before, that's very useful for students to go back on and have a look. And then, of course, we'll have work solutions. All your planning documents will sit on this online platform. So this is what we'd love to come and show you when we book a time with you and hopefully the faculty, and we can run through everything that's included. Now, on the next slide, I just want to let everyone know that we do have a second webinar coming up on the 10th of June. So this is with two of our advanced extension authors, Brian and William. So this webinar will be discussing the changes in the advanced extension courses for Stage 6, so that'll be full of great information for these. So we will be emailing you an invite to register, but if not, you can actually register with that URL that's displayed on screen. And then lastly, on screen, you will see the details of the New South Wales sales team. So any inquiries about any of these new resources, including pricing, availability, any of that, and like I said, a demo in the school, we're more than happy to book that in. So please reach out and we can schedule something in. So that is it. That takes us right up to time there, and I hope everyone has enjoyed this webinar, and thank you again to the team. And on behalf of all of us here at Cambridge, have a lovely night and good night. Thank you.